Every minute of every day we choose who we are, who we forgive, who we defend and protect. To choose a side or to walk the line, to play the middle, to straddle the fence between what is and what should be. This was the course I chose, trying to find the delicate balance of interests that can never exist, choosing by not choosing, defending a center which cannot hold. So death chose for me.
Hello and welcome to Most Unwanted, an X-Files podcast. I'm Luke and I'm here with Daniel Checkley, my co-host, as always.
Hello.
How are you doing? It took a while to get this one.
You know what? Sometimes you need to go take a few steps backwards to go forwards. And I think that's what we're doing.
There's sometimes you might go, oh, that intro is quite simple. And it's like, yeah, because we've done about 3 before it where we couldn't say the word the.
It's a very difficult word.
Yeah.
Like, where's the H? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. How do we make that sound? A TH to, I don't know.
I've noticed more as I speak that, like, just simple words will trip me up these days. I don't know what's going on, which is bad, really, for a podcast host. But there's just, like, I'll notice I'll say something, and I'm just like, how has that happened? Like, I'm 29, going on 30 this year, and I'm struggling with my own language. What's going on?
I do worry about that a little bit, because, like, as a podcast host, for example, I don't think I'm, like, particularly, like, a clear speaker. Like, I don't, like, you know, when you hear, like, advert voices, and it's all very much, like, sort of very loud and clear and spoken proper English and whatnot. Yeah. And that's definitely not us. But I feel like it's kind of shifting now. Like, more and more, I'll hear, like, for example, on an advert, it used to be like the Queen's English. Yeah, it used to always be that. And now I heard Stephen Graham, which is a Scouser like me, and I was like, oh, I've never heard a Scouser on like one of these sort of voiceover things, and it was interesting to hear. Do you know what I mean?
There was one the other day. It was do you know that Lady Leisha? She does like I don't know if it's grime or R&B, different. So,
okay, I'm not familiar.
She's like from Birmingham, like very thick Birmingham accent. And I said the same thing to Tasha. I was like, it's weird, isn't it, now, where regional accents are just accepted as normal.
Yeah, they've become a lot, especially the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah. It's good, though, I think, because there's so many, like, different... Nobody speaks all the same, like, accent. Well, I mean, you sort of have this stereotypical thing, don't you? I think if, like, people from other countries probably hear English and think of, like... Well, we've said it before, it's either... the Queen's English or an orc. Like,
the Essex. I think Love Island has a lot to do with it, because Love Island is such like a global phenomenon. And I know a lot of people that like associate that Essex accent with British people, which is, I mean, I can't even do the Essex accent. I was going to try and sort of give an example, but I can't do it. So that just shows it's definitely not sort of representative of the entire country. But you do. It's the same with us, though, isn't it? Like, if you was to do, like, an American accent or not. Let's take Australia. Yeah. Because the thing is with America, there are different states, and we know there's different accents. Australia, I'm sure there's a difference between the Melbourne and Sydney accents. I've got no idea what that is, though. I know an Australian accent is Australian. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's from my perspective.
That's the thing, isn't it? Because it's all you ever hear is like, oh, he's got an Australian accent. But yeah, if you live in the country, you know that there's many more.
There's got to be, surely.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. But yeah, anyway, we can speak English. We just about. We'll try and speak some more English in this upcoming review of SR819. So this episode is episode 9, series 6, entitled SR819. A bit confused by the title initially. Whenever you see these kind of like, you know, there's going to be something to do with it in the... But I just imagine like seeing what that title is, you'd be like, oh, this is some kind of like...
I thought it was an android.
Yeah. You
know what I mean?
A robot.
Like, robot episode.
Yeah. It does sound like that, doesn't it? Yeah. It's much more boring.
Not the episode.
Not the episode.
The SR,
but what the SR is, yeah. It was directed by Daniel Sackheim, written by John Shaban, and the original air date was January the 17th, 1998.
Nice.
So we'll get into the episode.
Before we do, should we talk about the confusion around the episode?
Yes, we alluded to it last episode. It was something I noticed quite quickly into the episode. So I started, as we mentioned before, we sort of use a synopsis to sort of make sure that like what we get from the episode is the same as what's happening. So I sort of read the first few scenes. I'm like, okay, that's what's happening. Started watching the episode, and I was like, why is there a man in an elevator? Like, what's... I don't remember this, like, in any of the notes. And I was like, I was a bit confused. It's like, am I watching the right episode? Disney Plus has screwed up the order.
Yeah.
And the naming and everything. Like, they've swapped the images as well, if I remember right. Or
I think so, yeah. So, but basically, this one and the next one, which I can't remember the next one.
Tithonus, I think it's called,
is completely in the wrong order.
Yeah.
And it's so difficult to find. You then proceeded to text me to warn me. And I was like, thanks for the warning. And then I ignored the warning by accident because I completely forgot and watched these episodes in the complete wrong order.
Luckily enough, they don't seem to follow on.
No, I don't think they do. So yeah, I watched next week's episode first and then this week's episode. But luckily it didn't have any bearing.
It doesn't matter too much. It does make me think that if you're new to the series and you've never watched them before, you wouldn't know.
No, you wouldn't. Yeah.
Because there's no... Like, there's something else I've been watching recently where it does a similar kind of thing. Annoyingly, it tells you... So the play order, it goes like, let's just, for instance, say episode 1. 1, 2, 3, 5, 4. And it's like, why have they flipped these around? Yeah. So it'll literally play the 5th episode before the 4th. But in this situation, it is something that's like, follows on for the next one.
Yeah.
So I'd start watching and be like, what have I missed something here? Go out and then notice it. With this... You probably, unless you're either reviewing it or re-watching it, you're not going to notice this.
No, you're not. No, you could easily just watch this as is. I don't think it'd make that much difference, to be honest.
I reckon that's probably why it's still there, the way it is, because no one's complained about it. But
apart from us, maybe we need to start the rallying cry to get everybody. Listen, me and Luke are going to do it. If everyone else just sends a quick email to Disney, just saying, please. Can you sort this out? This is affecting our lives in a negative way.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can get this fixed.
No context. Just say that.
Yeah. Don't even mention the episodes. They'll know.
Just say
they'll know.
Yeah, they'll know. Be like, oh, damn.
Dear Disney, you're affecting my life in a negative way.
Imagine if they get like, obviously I don't want to inflate our listener numbers, but imagine they get like sort of 50 emails. Just like, what's going on? That would probably be nothing for Disney.
A drop in the ocean, that is.
Yeah. God, well, how small are we in the cogs of the Mickey machine?
You know what? Yeah, it's true, but also how much power can we hold with just a limited amount of resources? We can do this.
We can do this. Are we trying to stage like a Disney-based communism? We're taking back workers' rights.
Well, yeah, I was subtly going for that. I was going to lead up to that. I was going to start with the email and then lead up to. But then if you want to just put it out right there on some fun streets, then we can do that too.
Yeah, we should probably disguise our.
Well, I was doing it effectively, and then you just came out and full on said it.
You know me, I don't do subtle. Anyway, we should probably get on with the episode. We start with we see like sort of people in hospital, sort of panicked. Somebody's come in, and they're very ill, and they mention that they need to call Scully. They mention FBI agent Scully. Immediately making you think, oh, something's happened to Mulder.
Yeah.
That was my an immediate indication anyway. And I like that they sort of lead you down this until eventually we see who the person is. And it is Skinner. And he's looking very worse for wear.
Yeah.
He's got sort of these like black sort of like lines all over his like under his skin, but all over his like head. And we see for the rest of his body. And he goes into cardiac arrest. And I mean, cut a long story short, he dies.
Yeah, he does. He whispers something into the doctor's ear at the start, and the doctor actually says, he said a name. Mm-hmm. Do we ever find out what that name is?
I don't remember them saying a name, no.
No, and I don't remember what she could have told them, but the doctor decides to just let him die.
Yeah, basically, after what she said. Maybe that's what he's saying, he's just maybe he doesn't say it. She says a name.
She does say, yeah, he said a name.
But yeah, we see him die, and then we get this voiceover of Skinner basically talking about his life and his choice of dying, basically.
Yeah.
It did make me laugh. This voiceover sounded very similar to his, we talked about it in the past, his Masked Magician.
Yes.
Sort of voiceover. So
Yeah.
the most morbid Masked Magician episode ever. But yeah, that was the opening, basically. What do you think of this?
It certainly gets you intrigued, doesn't it? I was glad to see Skinner back, and then I was shocked to see him die.
Yeah.
Again, kind of ruined by the fact that, like, I knew he wasn't dead.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you have, it's a silly question, really, because we kind of know that he doesn't.
Yeah.
But I never, it's the trouble with, we've said this multiple times, whenever somebody's put in mortal danger and it's like a main cast that we're 100% sure is in later episodes, there's no peril to it.
No, I've said this before. There's 4 characters I know will not die because the reason is they're on the box sets of the X-Files box set that I've seen in sort of like second-hand shops and stuff like that. Yeah. And Mulder and Scully, obviously front and centre. To the left of them is Skinner, and to the right of them is a character we've not met yet, but I've seen pictures of Scully with him. Yeah. It's the guy from Terminator.
Oh yeah.
And I know he comes into it at some point. So it's those 4 characters on the box sets.
Yeah. Everybody else is
expendable. We don't know at that point, but they're not going to put Skinner on the box set if he's only there for 6 seasons, are they?
Yeah. Somebody like Cigarette Smoking Man or relevant to the story, Critic.
Yes.
Somebody like them could die in the future. Or you can see it happening, but yeah, Mulder and Scully ain't dying. No way. No. But anyway, after the intro, we see Skinner earlier on, and he's boxing, or is it a boxing gym anyway? And he starts, while he's sparring with someone, he starts, again, like blurred vision, and it's not really highlighted, but I did think this was interesting. We sort of see somebody in the crowd watching him, very briefly, and that comes into it later on, but yeah, there's a guy with a beard and long hair who's sort of watching him from the crowd. He gets knocked out because he goes blurry, and he wakes up in hospital.
I did want to just point out, I really liked the way they did this, and it was very clever. Just a subtle little thing, but the first few minutes of the fight, Skinner is battering this kid. Yeah. Like, full-on battering. But it's clever because when he starts to turn, he starts, like, throwing punches that aren't hitting and, like, starts getting hit himself. It shows you something's wrong because in that 10-second clip, it sort of goes, okay, this is a guy who knows how to fight, who's good at what he does, who's not unfit. You know what I mean? He's not in a bad shape.
He's not weak and like...
Exactly. Yeah. That 10 seconds proves all of that, which makes the rest of the episode, it elevates it because it makes the rest of the episode go, well, what's going on with him then? Because it's not like he's an old man. It's not like he's had one too many Big Macs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's something must be wrong because he's actually a physically fit boxer that's like schooling 20-year-olds.
He's a slugger.
He's a slugger. Yeah. Exactly. So just a little, I just thought that was important to note because 10-second, I think that's very clever to have like that 10-20-second clip that elevates the entirety of the rest of the episode.
We see him in the hospital, and he gets a phone call from this like sort of digital voice. It reminded me of like Stephen Hawking's voice, which I was like, man, this Stephen Hawking is sinister. That's all I could think of when I heard it. It's that same kind of voice. But yeah, it basically tells him he's going to die in 24 hours. The doctor comes in and basically tells him, oh, he's fine, not a problem, apart from his bruises on his ribs, and he has a look and he's kind of got this, what we see later on, these like sort of black lines under his skin. I did like in this scene that everyone... Had Mike Tyson recently bitten somebody's ear off?
Tell you what, I'm going to have a look for that because I don't know. Maybe it was like a sort of a pop culture
reference. Because, my God, they hammered that.
Yeah, they did.
Literally 2 people were like, good job you've got your ear. And it's like, yeah, I get it.
It's so true. Yeah. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, I bet you it was.
It must have happened either that year or the year before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I will have a look. You continue and I'll have a look. Oh,
we got it.
When was this?
99.
20th of June, 97.
Oh, that's quite I mean, it would have probably been...
Don't forget they filmed like a year before, probably,
yeah,
or half a year before, so...
Yeah, it would have been like within a year.
I reckon so.
Yeah.
It's still probably the most famous things that happened in wrestling at the time, so...
Boxing.
Wrestling.
I mean,
God, what am I talking about?
To be fair, Tyson did get involved in wrestling, so
he did,
there is that crossover. But yeah, I just thought it was funny. It was like... It's kind of like when somebody doesn't really know about something... but they know of one thing, and it's like that's all they talk about.
Yeah, it's so obvious.
Yeah. So late that night, we see Mulder is in his office, and he sees Skinner come in, not looking very well.
Yeah,
he sort of stumbles in to his office. We also see Mulder is doing his famous throwing his pencils into the routine.
Why is he still in the office? Like, you're not getting anything done. But again, it goes back to that point of what else has he got to do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's got nothing else really. If he goes home, he's got an empty apartment really.
Yeah, and he's damaging his roof with all the pencils.
Yeah,
might as well damage the office roof.
Might as well. I was going to say it's not even his office now; it's just a shared office.
I know.
Just trashing. So we see that after this, we see that Scully's basically called away because they find out about she's called in because they find out about the call. I
think Mulder calls her in because of obviously he's not doing well.
They want to get him checked over, but he thinks that they're just trying to like scare him with his call. It's just like nothing to worry about really. Mulder thinks that this is all to do with the X-Files, and that basically they go through and try and find out what's happened that's caused this.
Yeah, his reasoning is basically like, if they was going to poison you, because if this is poison, if they're going to poison you, they wouldn't call you to tell you. The only reason why they would have called you is to see who you'd turn to in a time of need. That's his theory.
So they sort of go back through his day, and the only thing he remembers really is that he was sort of touched on the wrist by somebody.
By a doctor.
Yeah, asking him for the time. And we find out that this doctor is a Kenneth Orgel. And Scully knows him straight away, that he's actually like a physicist. And that he's related to the Senate in some way.
Yeah.
Which becomes a big
thing. And also they mentioned that he'd actually turned up and signed in to see Skinner that day, because they did a little bit of like CCTV recovery.
Yeah.
And so it becomes very clear that he was at least there in some way or another to see Skinner.
Yeah.
Obviously, the implication is he was there to poison him.
Mm-hmm. But there's much more to it than that we find out. But anyway, Scully says that he should rest, but Skinner...
I'd like to ask him that myself.
Sir, if this man poisoned you, you should be off your feet and under doctor's care.
If this man poisoned me, I'm going to put a gun to his head, find out why, and ask him how he's going to make me well.
So we see, after this, we see Skinner and Mulder go to Orgel's house, and they sort of try and talk to him on the doorstep, but he's having none of it, basically. Yeah. So they quickly try and surround him. Somebody opens fire on Skinner.
This all happened like really quickly. Yeah. I sort of felt a little bit sorry for you with hosting this episode, because it's simultaneously easy to host and also difficult, because there's a lot of scenes that happen, but like let's take this scene for example. All of a sudden, there's just agents everywhere, and everyone just starts running and shooting at everybody, and it's just happens instantly.
Yeah, it's all explained after the fact, but at the time you're like, wait, what's going on here? So they sort of force their way in because somebody opens fire. We see all these, as you mentioned, all these agents, and we see them basically stuff Orgel into the back of a car. Mulder manages to catch one of the guys. I did like this scene actually, because it was quite action packed, quite from the off, and you have a few of these littered throughout it. But I think it was quite intense of an opening. But they capture this guy, and he's speaking in Tunisian. Mulder gives him a classic "your mom."
Yeah, so's your mom. I'd love to know what that Tunisian is.
Yeah.
But it was great.
If we have any Tunisian listeners, let us know. What your mom is in Tunisian. Handy. To be fair, I mean, when you try and learn like other languages, that's the first thing you learn, isn't it?
Your mom?
No, not your mom, but swear words and stuff like that. First thing you did when I was learning French was learning what shit was.
What is it?
Merde.
Merde. Okay, nice. Good
That's
time.
literally the only French word I remember.
Sorry for cursing for our French listeners.
Sorry, everyone.
Sorry.
They probably
Let ourselves
They're
down.
probably like, that's not how you pronounce it. Merde head. Again, make myself look silly. But we find out that this Tunisian guy is actually he works for the embassy, so he has full diplomatic immunity.
Yeah, this sort of stuff baffles me. Like,
I had the exact same note.
yeah, like, I'm not really sure what diplomatic immunity is. Like, what? You can do anything. What, you've got carte blanche on, like, just any crime. Like, how does it work? And, like, if you can be held for murder, for example, then shoot, he's just shot an FBI agent. Yeah. What's more, like, worthy of taking him into prison for?
There's a program I'm watching recently, and I'm not going to tell anyone what the program is, because if I explain what happens, it's a spoiler.
Okay.
So, somebody murders someone, and then they find out that they're actually, something like, it's quite similar to this, where they're actually involved with an embassy, so they have diplomatic immunity, and it's like, they literally have clear evidence that they've murdered someone. How can they get away with that?
It makes no sense.
It baffles me, but it's like that kind of thing that happened with, it happened in this country, the Russian agents who poisoned.
So you don't get implicated ourselves in this war.
That's all right. They'll like us because we've already started communism in Disney.
That's a good point. We're on your side, Russia.
They don't do communism anymore.
Wink. I feel like we're really disparaging any Russian listeners.
Yeah, not Russia. I mean the government.
Yeah.
Let's
God, I've never seen us backtrack so much.
Let's take a shot at the Hancho instead. This is like us making a fool of ourselves over geography, but also quite worrying.
Yeah. Listen, there was something that happened, and it wasn't. There was another thing with Russia and diplomatic community, wasn't there? No, that was. Never mind, I'm talking nonsense. But yes, there was something in this country where basically, wasn't there? It was essentially
an assassination,
an assassination attempt using fucking gas, basically, or poison. And they had diplomatic immunity, which is like, no, you don't. No, not when you do that.
I can't imagine. Something else, actually. We can pick on somebody who's not Russian.
Oh, thank
America.
God. Bloody.
Sorry, America.
I bloody hate America. Right, Russia?
That's not. A lot of our listeners are in America.
No, I'm taking Russia's side.
Okay.
We're reigniting the Cold War today, baby.
Because that's a smart idea. No, there was.
I apologise to anyone listening. I love both Russia and America. It's Australia that I hate.
Swans.
Because what are they going to do?
You wait one day. Australia's just going to get really annoyed at you. Send it to hit squad.
I mean, we're way off track here, but we have entered a military agreement with Australia in the last week or so.
Well, there we go.
The British government. So yeah, we're allies now. So maybe we can take on Russia and the US.
I'm not gonna bat us in that fight, if I'll be completely honest. Anyway, but now there was recently something where an American politician or something like that, somebody member of like Senate or something, not senator, but anyway.
Yeah.
What again? I don't know the full details, but basically they ran somebody over in this country.
I did read about this. Yeah,
and then basically, whilst they were investigating the accident, it wasn't an accident.
She just went off.
She basically went back to America, and they said, "Oh no, we're not flying her out for trial." And it's like, how is that a thing? Like, imagine if you're the family that has to deal with this. And they're like, yeah, we can't give you justice because they're in a different country.
Yeah,
what is that?
Bizarre.
That's
mad. All jokes aside, I'm sure there's rule sets to all this. I just don't know them.
No.
But on the surface, it just I get what it's there for, but it just seems bizarre that Skinner would then go, it's not worth my job to prosecute this or to even look into this guy who's just fired at me or been involved in it.
It's involved in possibly my murder.
Yeah, it seems bizarre to me that it's not worth the job, but I'm sure there are reasons. And
yeah,
for it.
There's probably It's probably something to do with not starting a war, I would imagine. But
I could do with a few lessons in that. I'm telling you now, I know. Whoever's coaching Skinner, I'll give me your number.
You play too many Civilization games where you just go straight in for the bomb.
You just need to stop going in on every country. I don't know what's wrong with me. I've got a problem.
You're going to have to go there eventually, and you're going to be like, we're not letting you in. One day you're like, I really wanted to go on this trip to Australia, and they're like, you're the guy who's slaying us off in the podcast. I didn't attempt the accent then, but it slightly came in at the beginning.
A little bit, yeah.
But anyway, I feel like we've veered off a bit there. So they let this guy go, and also at the same time, we see that Scully is investigating Skinner's blood, and they find that in the blood, well, initially they find that nobody had checked it or something like that, so I don't know if this is part of the cover-up or conspiracy. But they do start looking into it, and they find that there's all these bits of carbon in it.
Well, this is what I took from it. They mentioned that the carbon is replicating, duplicating. So I imagine when they first examined it, it wasn't quite big enough. Maybe it had expanded in the time since.
That makes sense. Actually, I didn't pick up on that, but that actually makes the most sense. But so we literally see this. I don't know how you represent carbon. It looked like a cog. I guess knowing what we know at the end of the episode, it's like it would be a machine.
It does actually. It's a very good point. It does look very machine-like. Yeah, sure.
But we see multiplying, and they also, at the same time, we see Mulder going through the crime scene where Orgel, has been picked up, and he finds a picture of him and Senator Matheson. Now, we've not seen him in a while, and he's rocking a new do. Which was my first thing. He's got a lovely head of hair at the moment. Yeah. So then, obviously, after this, Mulder goes to visit Senator Matheson. Yeah. At 4 a.m. Yeah. To which he lets him know that's not okay. Yeah. And he asks him what Senate Resolution 819 is, which is this SR 819, which is what the episode's based after. Not a robot, it's a piece of paper. Yeah.
Just a bill.
Just a bill,
as always.
Just a bill. We find out that it's a funding bill for third world aid for the World Health Organization. So it just seems like good Samaritans. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And Mulder wants to investigate this more because he thinks that obviously there's something more to it than this, especially with Orgel being implicated in it. We then see Skinner in a garage, basically, and he's following. I think he's tailed one of the other Tunisian agents, and he starts going. His vision starts going blurry, and at this moment he starts getting shot at, or somebody goes to shoot at him. But another car out of nowhere comes and runs this guy over.
Yeah, and we do get a glimpse. They make this very clear that Skinner looks at the car and sees a bearded man. Yeah. And so immediately I'm like, who's that? It felt like we should know them.
Yeah. It took me until before the reveal, obviously. It took me right up until the end before I knew who he was.
I knew from this moment.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But I'm not sort of saying, oh, I got one up on you or I saw something. It was literally a case of the way the camera angle was, I just thought it felt like there was not enough of a glimpse of them to sort of, but it felt like we should recognise them, but not they didn't want us to recognise him. Yeah. And so I thought, well, who could it be? Krychek. Yeah. There was no one else, you know what
I mean? If you're after somebody who's blackmailing and
it's not a cigarette smoking man fucking doing the dirty work, is it?
Wearing a beard.
Yeah, smoking.
There was one part where he was smoking, I think, wasn't he? Or he was
I don't remember.
I think it's right at the end, he's sat in shadows, and I don't know if he's got a cigarette or something.
Oh, okay, yeah,
I don't
possibly.
know if that's meant to sort of anyway, it's not cigarette smoking.
Yes.
But we see this guy drive away, and Skinner gets a glimpse of him, but he sort of collapses at this moment. They manage to find him because he sets off a car alarm. Yeah. They rush him to hospital, and this is where they find that this carbon is kind of making they call it a matrix, but netting for his body, which is sort of shutting his blood vessels down.
Yeah, so basically, jumping ahead right to the conclusion, but this is basically nanotechnology, and the idea behind it is these little miniature robot in his bloodstream can build walls in his arteries at any point in time to basically give him an instant heart attack whenever whoever's controlling it wants them to.
I imagine it's like mechanical cholesterol.
Yeah, basically, exactly. Yeah,
it's doing the same thing. Yeah,
perfect way. But like you can turn it on and off.
I reckon it sounds more disgusting to describe it like that, though. So yeah, maybe they want to be more sexy and just
nanotech is a sexy word. Yeah.
But yeah, so they rush into hospital, and initially they're going to amputate his arm. Is one of their first solutions, but Scully talks them out of that because they basically say it's not going to do anything. What they eventually do is actually just keep his arteries open with lasers or something like that, which I imagine there's a scientific basis, but that sounds mental.
Well, yeah, and shit, when on the phone to Mulder, Scully mentions that like they're doing all they can with the technology they have, but like they can only go so fast, and whatever's inside Skinner is too advanced, so it's buying time at most. They're not going to be able to fix the problem with this.
Yeah, exactly. But really, they need to find what's the cause.
Yeah,
essentially.
a cure.
Yeah. So Mulder goes to Skinner's office to try and find any more information. He actually, I think the secretary finds him in there, just basically trying to open up his locked drawers and stuff like that. Doesn't find anything, but on the desk there's sort of like a top secret document that had been posted to him. He opens that up, and this is something to do with the bill, isn't it?
Yeah. Sent for Skinner's approval.
Basically, that he's involved in this sort of Senate bill. So he goes and sort of reports this back to Skinner. So this is where they figure out that Orgal was actually trying to tell
he
tell
wasn't
Skinner
involved in the assassination attempt.
Yeah. That something was wrong with this sort of bill. So Skinner's phone rings, and this is where he gets another. Mulder answers it, and he gets another one of these like digital messages saying that he basically just needs to give it up. Mulder goes and sees this bearded man again and gives chase, but doesn't manage to catch him. And we then see Senator Matheson get a phone call as well.
Yes.
This is from the I can't remember if it's from Mulder in this situation or not.
No, I think it's from the bearded man.
I thought it was, It's a digital voice again, isn't it?
And it tells him to go to see Orgal.
Yes, that's it,
or whatever his name is.
We then see, because they've managed to capture the Tunisian car, basically, because it's like a rental car, and they've done some investigation into this. And they find there's nothing really on there. There's some hairs, they say, from a fake wig or a really, really expensive wig. And they also say they've
didn't look expensive, did it?
No, I mean, a wig, innit? They also say they found something called PCBs. There is a longer name for it, but I didn't write that down.
Yeah.
But basically, it's something that you can find at power stations, or specifically old power stations, because they don't do those anymore.
Yeah.
So they figure it's some kind of abandoned power plant. And this is where we see Matheson actually turn up at a power plant. And we see that Orgal has sort of been captured and sort of strapped down onto this like desk. And basically is murdered in front of it.
It's almost like a demonstration of what they can do.
With this like nanotechnology.
Yeah, because we see the bearded man turn it up high, and it's very simple. It's a low-high setting.
Yeah, on a little Palm Pilot thing.
And he turns it up high, and those walls in his veins and arteries pop up. Instant heart attack.
Yeah. I did note at this point that the senator, this I think it's a bit later when he's talking to Mulder, but the senator reminds me a lot of Christopher Walken. And I'd love to see Christopher Walken in this role.
Okay, yeah. I can sort of see
the stuff he says, and I'd just be like, I just imagined it in his accent.
It's the pauses, isn't it?
Yeah. Mulder. Like that kind of. It's terrible accent. You know.
Yeah.
We then see we're back in the hospital, and Scully and Skinner are having a conversation, and she's sort of basically going through what they can do. There's this kind of like technique they can use to basically filter his blood to get all of these nanomachines out, but it would be incredibly risky and could potentially kill him. And this is where we get an interesting scene between Scully and Skinner, where Skinner's basically lamenting his life choices.
Yes.
That if he dies now, he's basically done nothing with his life.
Yeah, he talked about not taking sides, and when he could have.
Yeah.
And they sort of acknowledge the fact that he had to do that.
Yeah.
But also, and they acknowledge the fact, and Scully even says as much, that you've been an ally to us more the times than I care to mention. And Skinner replies, yes, but not as much as I could have been. And I thought this was a very interesting scene. However, it is also one of my criticisms of the episode.
Oh, really?
Because I loved this. I thought this was really clever, and I thought it was a really good way of getting Skinner more involved. And then the end happened.
Yeah, and it undoes all of that. Basically.
Yeah, and maybe there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
But even if there is a reason for it, it makes no sense to me that Skinner goes, well, I'm just going to play both sides again and not tell them what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense that... pardon me. It doesn't make sense, that transition of all of a sudden deciding actually everything I thought on death's row, on death's door, I should say. None of it matters. I'm going to carry on doing exactly what I have been doing and playing both sides.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, we're under no illusion that he is on Mulder and Scully's side.
Yeah.
He's just biding his time and playing the long game.
Yeah.
I don't know, it kind of just gets this whole scene, which I loved so much, gets ruined by the fact that it's not acted upon.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, there is this sort of argument that essentially he's got a gun to his head at this point.
Yeah,
so,
it's a very good point.
So there is kind of this... It for me, I saw it the other way as it's sad that we've seen him basically say, I want to help you more,
but he can't.
But he can't now because he's been forced.
I suppose we'll know more when we find out more about the story.
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe I'll look back at it a little bit more fondly.
Yeah. So yeah, we see this scene now between Mulder and Senator Matheson. And Mulder is sort of informed that Orgel's dead, but doesn't think that only Orgel knew what was going on here.
Yes.
And basically this is where they sort of explain what's been happening. Matheson explains that what's inside Skinner is nanotechnology. There's little machines that are replicating and, yeah, as we've seen, can sort of cause an instant heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what this SR819 is. It's sort of to authorise their use.
Yeah.
Whether it was in a third world or whatever for testing.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but... and they basically said they needed Skinner to authorise it, and yeah. But Matheson sort of says that Skinner's dead. There's no way he's coming back from this. And this is when we cut to what essentially is the opening scene, and we see everything that played out again. And we see Skinner die. They put a sheet over him, and then we see this man with a beard with his sort of Palm Pilot thing again lower the intensity, I guess. I'm not sure to 0. And this is where we see Skinner come back to life. Essentially, he starts coughing and spluttering, which I thought, this doctor's going to get railed for this. Imagine just going, give up completely, and then they come back to life.
Yeah,
with no touch. It's like, oh, man. We do see, again, a bit clearer, this guy with the wig and the beard on. And as soon as I saw his eyes this time, I was like, oh, I know who that is.
Yeah.
He has quite distinctive eyes, to be fair.
Yeah,
I think.
he does.
We see then the final scenes, I guess. 3 weeks later, we see basically Scully going through what had happened and how his health has sort of improved. We see the man who they think's responsible, but Skinner basically says, "Oh, I don't know who it is."
Yeah,
and Mulder wants to investigate it more, but Skinner basically shuts him down and says, "No, you work for Kirsch. I'm not your superior anymore. I mean, not their direct superior, I guess." And basically shuts all the investigation down, which Scully is really surprised by. And again, it's because we've had this scene between them where it seemed like he was actually going to help.
For sure.
But then we see why. It's because in the sort of garage later on, he gets into his car and we see that Krychek's in the back seat, and he basically leaves it on a sort of ominous note of basically saying he'll let him know when he needs him next. Sort of say he's got him on the hook.
Yeah.
Which we've seen that
he
can. Yeah.
That him causing Skinner to die and then come back to life is I've got your life in my hands.
Yeah.
The whole thing was a warning. It was never an attempt on his life.
Yeah.
It was well, you step out of line, and I've got this control over you now, which he still does. This thing's laying dormant, but it's not gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the end of the episode. What do you think?
I thought this was a really good episode. I thought it was good to get back to sort of what I believe is the main story. Mm-hmm. I'm always going to be a sucker for an episode with Skinner. I love Skinner as a character. And it was really cool to see Krychek. Really cool. I'm looking forward to seeing where it's going. I want to see what Krychek's up to and who he's working with now. Who knows? You never know when they explicitly tell you. You don't know if it's the truth.
I was going to say, he's like the Big Show of sorry, very wrestling heavy sort of reference. But it turns so many times.
Yeah, you just don't know. And so I'm looking forward to seeing where that heads up. Like I said, the only disappointment for me was I would have liked to have seen Skinner all in on the fight against the government. And I don't know whether we're ever going to get that, which makes me sad. I feel like Skinner's always going to be on the fence, and maybe not on the fence in his own mind, but on the fence in the grand scheme of the story. Which I feel like would be a shame, because it'd be nice to see him go all in the fight. A little bit like his when he had that fight with X.
Yeah.
And it just felt like, oh, cool, he's on their side now. Do you know what I mean? And it's a big deal.
He never sort of pulls the trigger, does he?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the same frustrations I had when we came back to this series and Scully was still skeptical about aliens, and it's like, how are we in this situation?
There does need to be, and I think this is X-Files as a whole. I know they've been careful not to do it, and I think they've actually handled it very well. But at some point, there needs to be a bit of consequence to actions, and this is one of the problems with 24 episode seasons, and they've got a lot of time to tell the story, and especially when you've got filler episodes, or not filler, sorry, Monster of the Week episodes, where you need the status quo to stay the same. But the problem is, if the status quo changes the same, then what's the point in doing anything?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing. It's not a big deal, and I'm not trying to make it bigger than it needs to be. But this really felt like one of those moments where I think it would have been elevated by Skinner coming out of this, learning something and changing the way he is.
Yeah.
But like you said, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the fact that he's got a gun to his head makes a difference. But he had poison in his body, and that didn't bother him.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So I don't understand why. It doesn't make sense to me why this would scare him enough to sort of go against what he figured out. I don't know.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think it's something with the X-Files that you have to sort of toe that line of sort of, you can have so many resets, but you can't have too many where it's like, okay, why invest?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to get to that point where people are like, well, who cares? Because it's going to just go back to,
It's the age-old comic book problem.
Yeah.
And comics have had this problem for as long as you can remember, where there's that classic cliche of like, no one's ever truly dead in comics.
Yeah.
But the problem is, if no one ever dies, then why do I care when there's a big story and one of the comic book hero dies?
Yeah.
Because I know he's going to come back.
Yeah.
And it's no matter what happens, if you keep on resetting the character back to zero, well then why am I going to bother? I'll just read it again when he comes back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It is that same thing. Again, it feels like I've turned on the X-Files. You know what I mean? Like, I know this is part of what the X-Files is, and I for the most part, I think they've done it really well. They've towed the line really well. This is just one of those instances where I just thought, this doesn't really make much sense to me. It
would have been a bit more better. That doesn't sound right. It would have been better if like they actually kicked on and like Skinner changed because of it.
Yeah, or like you had a moment where like he kicks them out of the office, goes. I'm doing fanfic again. But he kicks him out of the office exactly the way he does, goes into the car, Krychek's got a gun to his head, and you see a note that he slipped to Scully, and Scully reads the note and says, Krychek at this address.
Yeah.
And then it leads into the next time we see them where they go to that episode.
Yeah.
Just something like that where it's like, oh, he's actively going against them now. He's not going to stand by and let things happen.
And that sort of plot, like, that sounds like it will happen, but we didn't see it in this episode.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, it's one of those, you always have to sort of see at the end and you see, but yeah, I know what you mean. Like, sometimes you're a bit like, oh, come on, just like...
Yeah, for sure.
But we'll see how we get there in the end. But, yeah, I enjoyed this. I thought the mystery was good as well, of, like, what's actually happening.
Yeah.
And yeah, as you mentioned, anytime we see, like, a Skinner-centric episode is always good. I was the opposite on the ending. I quite liked the ending.
Yeah.
Because I did see it as this, like,
The
sad, because it's
yeah.
like, he really wants to help, but now he has a gun to his head and can't for whatever reason, so. But yeah, a really solid episode.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Luke's production notes.
At the start of season 6, the producers of The X-Files began to worry that Walter Skinner was becoming expendable, as Mulder and Scully's transfer from the X-Files division meant that they saw less and less of him. Originally, John Shaban, the writer of the episode, wanted to infect Mulder with nanobots. However, he decided that since the audience knew Mulder would not be killed, this plot would not be effective. 100% yes.
It's exactly what we were speaking about, yeah.
Shaban thus decided to rework Skinner back into the series mythology by putting him in Mulder's place. Shaban was inspired by the noir film DOA and its 1998 remake, which he jokingly called Two Pretty Bad Movies. So, wow, that's disparaging. He decided to craft an episode of The X-Files around the concept of a guy who's been poisoned and has only a short time to live and has to use that time to find out why and by whom he's being murdered.
Okay, interesting.
Spoiled DOA for me there. But yeah, no, I think, yeah, we sort of went over that. I mean, we know obviously Skinner's not going to die, but at the time, I would imagine he might be dead. But anyway. Shaban began crafting his story by incorporating a nanobot plot that had been considered by various writers for several seasons. Shaban and the rest of the writing room were conscious in their decision to give Alex Krycek full control over Skinner via the nanobot infection, as it caused Skinner to once again become a mysterious character whose true loyalties could be tested.
Yeah, and I get that. Yeah. I get that. It's just, it feels like we didn't need to. We've gone past that. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
We'll see. I like the next one because this would have probably made the episode better for you. Originally, the episode was slated to feature a time-consuming fight scene pitting Skinner against Krycek.
Yes!
But the scene was cut because of time constraints and worries about going over budget. However, Skinner's boxing match proved much easier to stage. Mitch Pileggi had boxed competitively of course he did.
Of course he did. What a man. What a man.
Mitch Pileggi, every fact I read about him, I'm like, man, this guy's lived a life.
I came into X-Files thinking Duchovny was the main guy. Yeah. No one told me. No one told me that this stud was here. I love him. I love this guy.
This stud. He boxed competitively in college and went for a refresher course at the Goosen Gym in Los Angeles to prep for the episode. He later remarked, "It makes me happy that some people will assume that there was a stunt double in the ring. There wasn't. We both had a pretty good time." Location manager Ilt? I don't know if that's correct. I've copied this, but I don't know if that's... Anyway, Somethin Jones calls SR819 the damn parking lot episode because he was personally tasked with finding the variety of parking lots used in the episode. I mean, I didn't notice that until he'd said it, but there is a lot of parking.
And moronic me kind of just assumed it was all the same one for no reason at all, but like I didn't even question it.
I mean, they all kind of look the same.
Yeah.
But literally, there's that bit as well where they're driving away and the car crashes into the car. I forgot to mention that, but I mean, it's not a major part of the plot. He later joked, "I started to wake up screaming about barriers and parking tickets and entrances and exit ramps." There you go. Nightmares for more than just this thing. Pileggi had to endure long hours of makeup application and to create the principal illusion of monstrous veins. Long black faux veins were glued to his body. Pileggi had little to no makeup in previous episodes and later said, "They did a beautiful job and the veins looked awesome, but man, I hated it. I really don't know how those guys on Star Trek and Babylon 5 can stand having that done to them every day. I just wouldn't work if that's what it took." I mean, fair, yeah, I can understand that people are like Klingons and stuff. I'm like, no way.
I wonder whether you get paid for it.
And probably no more.
Do you not reckon?
I reckon.
Because, like, for example, like, I mean...
Because I'd argue if you're having all that makeup on, you're not the star. If you know what I mean? Like...
Well, I'm thinking more like... Because I'm thinking Marvel, and so like, it's a little bit different, because I'm sure...
Nowadays,
I'm sure they get paid more than enough. But, like, I know Karen Gillan was, like, for the first film of Guardians of the Galaxy, I know she did, like, 8 hours of makeup.
And had a bald head.
Yeah. But she had to get up at, like, 2 when some of her stars didn't. I'm like, surely that's not fair. Would you get paid? But then... In TV, I genuinely don't know.
I guess they sort of make it clear in the role.
Yeah.
Like, when you're, like, sort of going for the casting, so... I don't know. I think...
If we ever go to, like, one of the Comic-Cons or anything like that...
We ask about the pay structure of
if Mitch Pileggi ever shows up at one near us, should we go? We'll pay the price, and they'll say, oh, you've only got, like, 2 minutes or whatever, and we'll go, yeah. By the way, when you did the vein thing... Did you get paid extra?
Did you get overtime? Or
yeah,
something?
Did you get
I don't know if that works in acting.
Was it time and a half, Mitch? We really need to know.
Or did you get time in lube back?
He's off for season 7. He's not there.
Different world than acting. Don't get that kind of stuff.
Amazing.
He says, to show the to show the nanobots... do you know at the beginning we said I struggle with English? I'm like to demonstrate
what
for it.
What do those nanobots do?
To show the nanobot infection progressing, special effects makeup supervisor John Vulich used 2 different makeup sets, one representing the early stages of the disease and the other representing the late stage. The nanobots in the blood sample were designed on a computer and then cloned with an animation program. So, I mean, yeah.
It makes sense.
It stinks.
Welcome to the Critic's Files.
What would you rate this episode?
I'm going to go for much the same as the last episode. I think I'm going to go for an 8. Less enjoyment.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't enjoy this as much as I did last week's episode, but I felt like it's more important, and it was more intriguing, the questions that it left me with. I think 8 for me. It
is the very, very rare occasion where every score aligns.
Wow.
So I also gave it an 8, and with 2,783 votes, it got an 8. Bang on.
No way. That's a first. That's historic.
I think that's our first. Like
most unwanted. Wow.
We are men of the people.
Men of the people.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't. We've
slagged off the entire world this episode, but men of the people.
Yeah. Well,
we know what they want. Yeah. And they want a bit of Mitch. They want a bit of Mitch.
Who doesn't want a bit of Mitch, though, to be fair?
I do. I certainly do.
That is everything this week, though. I don't really... it's annoying. The trouble is, when we all... literally, we're all in agreement, we go, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It was good, wasn't it?
I was hoping for, like, I don't know, like a 10 or a 5 or something.
Yeah.
What? No. Or... Anyway. But, yeah, we all agree. So, that's the end of the episode, I guess.
Yeah.
Next week, we're tackling an episode called Tithonus. Or Tithonus. I'm not, again.
No idea.
It's Greek, so I'm probably butchering that pronunciation.
Tithonus, if it's Greek, I'd imagine.
Tithonus, yeah. But for this week, we'll leave you, all you Mitch heads.
Yeah, you crazy Mitch heads.
You Pileggi nuts. And we'll leave you there. Goodbye, everyone.
You Mitch.
Hello and welcome to Most Unwanted, an X-Files podcast. I'm here.
I should hope so.
I'll start again.
No. That was good.
I'm starting
That was
again.
really good.
That's an outtake.